guys? This is Sotla, Season 3, Episode 1, and I know that by heart by now because of these technical difficulties. This is the third take of this, and it's the first time I've ever had to do more than one take, and I completely blame Windows 10 because 2 times I've done this flawlessly, and what happened? It stopped the recording because I'm minimizing the window. So what I'm going to do is slide this to the right so I don't stop it, and I'm going to make sure this records. Alright, so as you can tell from Katy Perry, this is my 27th birthday, and I'm still coming into work today, just for you guys, your faithful commissioner. I do it all for you, so hope you appreciate that. I do want to thank everyone for that successful draft that we had last week at Scott's house, and thank you very much for hosting and having that wonderful setup. Excuse the little bit of a eyesore behind me. We're still working on getting Jody moved in. Hopefully next week that'll be all fixed, and we'll be ready to go. So I'm going to do the rankings, post-draft power rankings, where I thought everyone ended up as a result of the draft, starting at number 12. We'll go all the way down to number 1. To caveat that, obviously these things change week to week based on big injuries, so this is exactly as it stands right now in this point in time, obviously. And I didn't consider defenses and I didn't consider kickers just because I don't think it's going to sway a team in one direction or another. So I've done this 3 times. Just give me a second because it's getting really hot in here. Just 1 second. I got to change. It's really hot here. Hold on. Ah. So there we go. What the hell? I thought it's my birthday. Thought I'd do this in my birthday suit. Still looking good with your tie. My tie. Okay. So what do I do here? What do I have? Here's my notes. Starting at number 12, the worst person in the draft goes to stud. And I think he'd better buckle up for the next 3 weeks because it's going to be a bumpy ride for him. He's got Cam Newton, and for the 3 weeks, that's all he's got because he still needs to wait for Le'Veon Bell to come back. And he's banking on a lot of other guys to perform at their ceiling projection, which I think is going to be hard to ask. He may hit on a couple, but I think we've all questioned some of his questionable moves. Last year, it panned out very well for him as he finished second in the league. I don't know if that streak's going to run out or not, but I don't have a lot of confidence. I struggled to find a draft strategy here. And it seemed like after the first 2 rounds, he was just picking up scraps. So hopefully he makes some more surprising moves and gets back into the mix here. But right now I've got him at number 12. Number 11, I've got Sean. So all I've got to say, he's got to do something with those extra quarterbacks and get himself a wide receiver. I don't know why he did that strategy. We'll have to let him explain. But I think he does definitely need a wide receiver to make up for it. I don't understand why he did those 3 quarterbacks, but he said it was for trade bait. Historically in our league, we've all know that we don't really generally hold quarterbacks in high regard unless they're like a top 3 quarterback, and I don't know if he's got any of those until Tom Brady comes back after 4 weeks off. So I'm gonna see what he does with those extra quarterbacks, see if he can get a deal done, and see if it's with anyone except for stud and not named Tom Brady, because that's the only way I think he's gonna get a deal out of this. But I do have to give him props for his team logo, but that's about the best praise I can give his team after looking at that. So, number 10, I don't know why I've got Kevin here. First question right off in the draft, I don't know why he traded Drew Brees away, who's been so consistent. Gets Andrew Luck, who's been up here, and he's been down here. And he only traded an 8th round. He only got an 8th round pick out of the deal, which is still scraps, if you can see. I mean, he has Fred Jackson, who's not even in the league. So I don't know exactly what Kevin was trying to do here. I thought Scott swindled him, but we all know as an owner that's kind of what Kevin does. He gets swindled in his trades. So that's why I don't have a lot of confidence in him to make trades and get back into the mix again. So I got Kevin at number 10 here. I don't know if he's gonna get out of this one. He's already at number 10 to start. Number 9, Scott did get a little bit of a better deal than Kevin, but I still have him at number 9. He's got a solid wide receiver core between Julio Jones, Jarvis Landry, and Jeremy Maclin at flex. But he's got little to no bench. I thought he's got probably one of the weakest benches in the league right now. So he is vulnerable to injury, and he's going to have to get some work done in order to fill up that bench to get ready for the bye weeks and trying to build himself back up in the standings. So number 8. It was Mr. Auto Draft himself, was Zuck, because he let all the computer make all of his decisions for him. Are we surprised Zuck taking, technology to his side? However, it didn't seem to work. I looked over his team, and I think his either laptop was drunk or he made some type of calc errors in his metrics because It looks like he was drafting in 2013 based on some of his has-been players, like RG3, for instance. He's got him at starting, so I don't know how that's going to work out. I think he was too busy laughing at everyone else's picks to, worry about his own picks. So his bench is about as good as his starting lineup, and that's never a good sign. He might be a middle of the road competitive team right now, but I've got him at number 8. Number 7, I've got Kyle. I like the options he has everywhere except for running back. I didn't see a whole lot of depth, especially for a guy. He got Thomas Rawls, and I think he has Matt Jones, so he's got a guy coming off of injury and another guy who can't stay on the field. So without having a lot of depth there, it's going to be hard to upgrade for him. Otherwise, I do think his team is pretty good. He can hopefully dig himself out of this hole that he's in. I think maybe he'll want to stay low on the priority list. Hope for a good running back replacement if he ever falls into trouble. Well, let's see who we got at number 6. I actually have Nick here. Surprisingly, he shows up halfway up the list and not towards the bottom. Because of his favoritism with Buffalo Bills players, but he was smart enough to keep them all out of the starting lineup so far. So I'll give him credit with that, but even though, of course, he still has 3 Buffalo Bills on the roster. So at least he knows better not to start them. For real, he does have Aaron Rodgers, Todd Gurley, Allen Robinson. I think he's got a pretty good, solid team. However, he's got them juxtaposed, if you look at that lineup, with Julius Thomas and Marcus Wheaton, 2 guys who have pretty much underperformed their expectations in the last few years. So I don't know I think he's hoping a little more than he's going to get. So those guys have underperformed, but he's got those dense scores right there, so I think that does help him. And I think he's getting number 6, which is right in the middle of the road. And also in the middle of the road, I've got myself here at number 5. I do think I'm relying a little bit heavy on mostly unproven fantasy guys such as Lamar Miller, who is underused. I got part-time player Josh Gordon, I said, since he hasn't played in a few years. Chris Ivory switching teams. Sammy Watkins can be hit or miss, but I think he's got great expectations this year. But we don't really know. However, I do think I had a good strategy of combining D'Angelo Williams and Josh Gordon to overlap each other with their suspensions. So when D'Angelo Williams tapers off with the return of Le'Veon Bell, I'll have Josh Gordon coming back, and so I'll have still a solid flex player, and I won't be really missing much. So I do have a strong bench of veterans, and so I do have a safe backup, but I do think for the most part my starters, I'd made a few risky decisions, but we'll see. I'm going to hope it pays off for myself. Number 4. I have Moan. I think he surprised everyone with his number 2 pick of David Johnson. But after 25 rounds of mock drafts, I think he came well prepared. He is another guy that did wait a while on a QB and still came up with a solid pick. But I think it is assembled pretty well. I think the biggest thing he needs to get credit for is having, DeMarco Murray, and he had Derrick Henry paired together. So depending on which one of those guys is a starter, hopefully one side gets more picks on the other is what I think he's looking for in order to get extra workload with one guy rather than a 50-50 split. So I think he was well prepared. He had a good draft strategy, and I picked him at number 4. At number 3, we have 2-time champion Sam Webster moving up the list. He's got really good star power with his team. He's got Russell Wilson up top. I did see a couple holes on his team, though. He has some past disappointment, and Jeremy Hill, Demaryius Thomas is going to have a stagnant defense this year, I think. But he does have a very solid bench, which I gave him credit for, and then they can be replaced in an instant if Demaryius Thomas or Jeremy Hill don't really pan out as expected. So I think he got a really solid team, and I put him at number 3. Number 2 here, I give him a lot of props for doing this on remote, but I have Ryan at number 2. It's pretty bad to have a bad receiver core when you draft Antonio Brown number 1 overall. But aside from Phillip Rivers, who I think is toward of a back-end starter in the league for a 12-man league, I think he's got one of the best rosters I've seen. Relies a bit heavy on Arian Foster, definitely injury prone, but he does have that backup option on the bench for him. So he is protecting himself. He does have a bit of an insurance plan, and I think he's going to be, if he's doing well halfway through the season, he gets Dion Lewis back to get into the mix if he has a strong return for the Patriots, and I think he's going to be pretty well set. So I've got Ryan at number 2. And number 1, I can't believe it, the guy who never really played fantasy until a couple years ago. I think he had the best draft. I give it to Alex. I scrolled through his team. I thought, wow, he's got such great strength, and he's at the wide receiver and running back position. And if I assume that Barnage is going to have a top 5 tight end return from last year, I think this is definitely the top team this year. Especially if he can get a deal done and improve his only weak spot, which I thought was quarterback. Sean's got 9 of them, so I think he can possibly get a deal done because he's got a pretty solid bench there himself. So I think he's got a really good team, and I think that's why he's the team to beat right now. I gave him the number 1. I think he had the best draft. And this is a perfect example of why I don't believe with the Yahoo projections, as he was definitely. I have a 105, and I put myself at 5, and Alex is. I know he's missing a defense, but I think he's like an 87 or 88. But I've got him as the strongest team. Obviously, he's going to put a defense in for the first week. So that's my Power 12, my rankings of the draft. Next week will be Thursday. We have the first game. So then just before that, we'll have Sotla. I'll do the league pick'em, and I'll do the usual regular segments. So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we're going to close out with another song here. Let's see. We'll do this one.
Don't try to hide it. I'ma make it my bitch. Ooh, baby, I like it. You're so excited. Don't try to hide it. I'ma make it my bitch.